Welcome to OLT 322, African American Literature for the Open University of Tanzania. My name is Warren Reed. Lecture 12 now, James Baldwin and the play Blues for Mr. Charlie. If you wanted to know why I'm shooting around here, first of all, I like The Hobbit. It reminds me of the Hobbit movie. Second of all, it's very hard to find a quiet place in Dar, so out in the rough, wild places where the wild things are, like me, that's where I've come. Okay, today we're going to talk about several issues in the play. Manhood. We're going to talk about Richard, the character Lyle Britton, liberalism and race, and religion. First off, manhood. The problem of manhood comes out from several elements. The first is that the slavers, the racists, made the white woman a symbol of racial purity, so they had to protect that. Secondly, the slavers and racists abused black women to satisfy their lusts. And thirdly, they feared the black man would want to do the same. And so they had to protect the white woman, their racial purity. And so in order to do that, they oppressed black men and reduced their manhood and their identity as men. So that, for example, if being a man means standing up for yourself, then anytime the black man stands up for himself, they beat him down, sometimes even kill him as an example, so that the others don't do the same. And this is also part of, the Jim Crow wisdom. Act a certain way, otherwise this could happen to you. Don't be the man that you think you should be. You have to surrender that or you're going to get killed. So they traded in their manhood for survival. Tough words on a hot day. But, the truth burns, right? The minister Meridian sacrifices his dignity to help his son Richard in such a way. But Richard disapproves of that. He opposes those kinds of behaviors, which the grandfather in Invisible Man, you remember, he gave this advice: to win them with smiles and grins in order to survive and be successful. But Richard, he doesn't have any of that. He don't want that. The play takes place in the plague town. The plague is a disease. A plague is a disease which spreads quickly, and very few people escape its effects. Here, the disease is the blindness, which allows justice and humanity to be dished out in terms of race. James Baldwin writes in the introduction to the play, "The plague is race. The plague is our concept of Christianity. And this raging plague has the power to destroy every human relationship." Richard's mother was killed by whites, and he hates them for it. But he's also angry with his father for not standing up and doing something, taking some revenge. So he decides his mission will be to take revenge for her. He starts by acting out against white men, defying Jim Crow wisdom. He acts out and intimidates a white man. Then later he decides he's going to seduce white women. So if the white men are protecting this white woman, that's their main source of pride, then it's a perfect target for him to get revenge by spoiling their source of pride. He thinks he will liberate himself and be a hero by doing so, but he's just fulfilling their stereotypes about black men. So he's not actually doing anything. He's giving them more fuel for their own racial hatred fire. Lyle Britton is the husband whose wife Richard acts out at, and Lyle shoots him down without conscience. Lyle Britton represents everything about white racism. He unthinkingly accepts all this ideology of racism. He hates the idea of interracial relationships. He is dehumanized by his own hatred. We've seen this. Hatred and racism dehumanizes on both sides. His wife is also blind and inhuman. She doesn't even feel bad that her husband killed somebody. She doesn't even see it as a crime. So through fear and guilt, these guys, they're chained. They will never be free because they have no love. They're full of hate and fear. Liberalism and racism. Liberalism was a movement to make liberty and equality spread through society. But James Baldwin attacks it in his play because it seems to have been a tool. Some white people were racist, but they felt guilty about it. So they show these liberal attitudes, but in their own hearts they're still racist, and they still feel that they are better than blacks. They don't want people to think they're racist, so they have this outward behavior. But, they're just as racist as all the rest. Parnell, the journalist, likes blacks, but he can't forget that he's better than they are. Liberalism is shown not to be the answer to the plague of racism, because it can't give up its sense of white supremacy. With this, Baldwin is targeting those whites who are using the suffering of blacks for political ends, for their own benefits, not to help them, but to help them gain popularity. Religion. Once again, religion is a source of blindness, loneliness, and terror. In the play, there are two white preachers, and they do not follow their own Christian values to help all men equally. They just support racism. This is because they, like the others, they just don't recognize the humanity of blacks. In fact, if anything, they see them as little children that need to be guided and punished and so on. Meridian was the other preacher, and he seems to have escaped into religion because he thinks it will protect him from racial oppression, with the idea that, if he's a minister, then he's not a threat to whites. But he learns that on earth, God's law isn't followed, and that religion is not enough. Baldwin has shown that one of the major results of racism is the absence of love. In his works, he's attempted to expose the source of problems of African Americans. Self-hatred and escapism are major factors in their unhappiness and frustration, and those are around because they are results of racism, which has caused a lack of love. In fact, a lack of love could lead to racism, because racism is a hatred. Here we see the quest for identity swinging again. Over here with Richard Wright, one's identity was constructed while at grips with society. With Ralph Ellison, one had to retreat, to be isolated, to find and construct one's own identity, and then, of course, represent it, defend it, and show it. With Baldwin, it seems to be a cross between the two, with the added ingredient that love, the absence of love, is the cause of all of these problems. So perhaps if we open our hearts and we inject more love into our treatment of our fellows, some of these problems can start to go away. We've talked about manhood, the issue of manhood in Blues for Mr. Charlie, which is also an issue in society. We talked about the character Richard, the man who kills him, Lyle Britton, liberalism and race, and once again, religion. My name is Warren Reed. This was Lecture 12. If you have any questions, check the Moodle, and also you can email. Don't stagnate. Stagnation is death, as you learned. Don't just sit there, you must act. If nothing from this course, you realize that you must take action if you want change. So take some action, study. If you have problems, email me, go on the internet, check the Moodle. I've got a bad feeling.